how do we win? And really, how do we help you win? Because that's the whole point. Um, so the first big idea is that emissions will be a default always on metric. And so we already have hundreds of advertisers measuring their carbon emissions using Double Verify, IS, agency dashboards. Um, we just launched the Scope3 media reporting product, and we have a ton of folks in the pipeline. And so what this means is that agencies and advertisers are going to have access to carbon data. Um, and so this will be kind of always on, meaning every campaign, every week, every day, not once a year. And it also means that, if you look at things like this is a screenshot of our media reporting product, you can kind of see like the average carbon per thousand impressions gets interesting, or carbon per spend, or carbon per conversion, or carbon per ROAS. These are really valuable things that you can have if you're an agency or an advertiser. One key point, if you're on the sell side, if you're an ad tech company, or if you're a publisher, please upgrade to our new V2 APIs, because this is what feeds into the media reporting interface. And so this is really important just to make sure that we have all the data out to the advertisers. It's also a great moment to make sustainability a key part of media kits, upfronts, sales pitches, post-campaign reporting. This is when people will start asking questions about what we're doing. And so, is your team trained? If not, or if you think there's more training, one of the things we'll be doing after Cannes is starting to run more training sessions, webinars. Please let us know what would be most helpful. We can do these in different time zones. Obviously, we have people all around the world. So to the extent that this kind of material is useful, we'll also share this webinar recording if your teams want to watch it. But probably more interesting is to have this kind of recording afterwards. So are there materials you need to help put this in sales decks or put this in your marketing material? Please let us know. Like, we're here to help. And our goal is to make sure that our entire client base is ready for what we think is going to be a really quick adoption of sustainability metrics. Another key way to win is being really good at optimizing for emissions. And this will be a new core competency. I mentioned before that advertisers are going to make this a KPI. I also think we'll see more compliance questions from procurement teams and from sustainability leads inside enterprises about, how do the marketing investments tie back to corporate sustainability reporting, especially in Europe, California, Australia, anywhere where there's a regulatory requirement, this is happening. But that means we have to get good at optimizing for emissions, because they're going to want to know, hey, how do we get down to zero, or how do we significantly reduce these numbers every year? We just rolled out our emissions simulator where you can actually see the impact of making different changes. But I think inside the agency, the question is, who's in charge of this? Who's building the toolkits or the best practices? Who's the lead for this process of making sustainability a core competency? And if you're an agency, if you're an independent agency, you may not have that person yet. If not, we'd love to help you figure out the right kind of person for that. The holding companies all have people in sustainability leadership roles, but they're going to get swamped. And so I think it needs to actually be more localized. So just thinking about how to organize to make sustainability a core competency. I also think it's an opportunity for us as a community. So for folks who are working at publishers or working at ad tech companies, agencies always love it when we help train teams. And so this is a case where maybe that's an opportunity to, I don't know, go hold a session in an agency. I did this a couple of times last year where we just got 100 people from an agency together and just did a Q&A session or a fireside chat to talk about this and help people understand what's happening. And of course, doing that with a neutral perspective is always nice, not a why you should choose my product. But of course, there's value in that too. If you're an ad tech company and you're on this call, you've already done the work. You already have GMPs, GMP Plus, we have Climate Shield, we have custom algorithms, we have all kinds of stuff that we've been building together for the past 2 years. Like, it's our time. Like, this is the moment when we're going to see demand increase dramatically. We've already seen a huge spike. I think usage is up 6 times year over year or something crazy, which is amazing. that we're there. I kind of feel like there's another 6x or 10x coming. So this is a great moment to lean in. And if you need our help with anything in that process, of course, that's what we're here for. Um, expect a lot of people to say that they're GARM compliant. So this is what happens with every standard. Everyone's like, I do that standard. Um, the risk here is that it's a draft framework right now. And as Gabby mentioned, there's no audit or monitoring process defined yet. And so pretty much anybody could say we're compliant with GARM. And it's hard to argue with them. And I don't think folks at agencies or advertisers are going to have the expertise necessarily to know why we're better than some random vendor. One thing we're going to do at Scope3 is really try to push on the monitoring and auditing parts of the GARM framework. We know what to do because MRC has been doing this for decades. Like we know what this should look like. So we just need to make sure that that set of processes shows up here. It's a big pain in the butt to be MRC compliant. And in fact, you'll see that like they'll pull Nielsen's MRC accreditation sometimes because Nielsen can't keep up, and that's a multi-billion-dollar company. So that compliance process is very quickly going to separate the companies that have the resources and scale and maturity to be compliant and those that don't. And I think we're going to see a very small set of vendors that can actually do it. In the interim, I'd encourage asking vendors some simple questions. Is your data open? Can I see it? Is your model open? Can I see it? How do you know these things? And if they can't just walk you through a few steps, that's a problem. And obviously, you've chosen Scope3, thank you. But we want to train the market to ask these questions. How do you know the data is accurate? What we've decided to do is to launch a program called Scope3 Verify. And so for our clients who've actually done the work to get us accurate data, we're going to add a little badge to the Scope3 interface. So as of today, congratulations, New York Times, you're Scope3 verified. This is our little verified icon. And actually, publishers are today, ad formats are today, and then we'll do this for ad tech companies soon. We actually got all the pieces. We just need to go roll it out. But I think this is going to be something that also helps in those sales materials to say, look, an independent has said, we are GARM compliant. We are GARM ready. Our data is accurate. Because I think self-reporting that, if you just said, hey, here's our data, we know from experience, and this not to diss the ad tech industry, but people don't always tell the truth or always have the most accurate data about themselves. And so I think that's where we move from being, sort of the standard, because we're not, we become the people who can really make sure that the data will meet not just the industry standard, but also the regulatory standard. And we can be part of an assessment or audit process from the sustainability perspective. So if someone says, are you GARM compliant? You can say yes, because we work with Scope3. They've done the assessment process. They've verified our data is accurate. And if you want to know more, I can show you in the Scope3 interface all the data that they have that makes you feel really confident that you're getting the right numbers from Scope3. And if you're an advertiser or an agency, this is something you can start asking partners for. Hey, so-and-so, are you Scope3 verified? And if not, could you please contact Scope3 and go through that process? And by the way, this is not that different than B Corp. If you want to be, you could do all the things B Corp asks you to do, but you can't say you're B Corp certified. But if you go through the process, if you get audited, if you do the things, then you get the B Corp seal. So this is our version of that for the industry. And I think it's going to be really helpful to help separate, the companies that actually do the right thing from, that black box, confusing green company that I mentioned earlier in my holding company slide. So, that's sort of what I think is going to happen soon, and how I think we can all win is really leaning into the process. As I mentioned, post-CAN, we're going to have educational webinars. We're going to have training sessions. We're going to help do some content marketing for the broader industry. And we have a bunch of folks. If you'd like to work with us on this, by the way, if you'd like to publish, how to choose a carbon, sustainability platform, or how to make sure that you're ready for the future of sustainability, we'd love to help. It doesn't have to be about us. It can be about the sort of industry situation. Please let us know, and we'd love to help you do that. And we've got a bunch of content that we're not going to use ourselves, but we can give you or help you use. And in fact, like that framework comparison slide from earlier in this deck, like feel free to borrow that. Happy to share that. And any of our materials we're putting together, let's figure out how to help you leverage those for trainings internally or externally. We really see ourselves as being a resource here for you. So just let us know what would be most helpful. Okay, final thoughts, and then we'll open up for questions. So there's a little Q&A link at the bottom if you want to ask them. I think that we're in the trough of disillusionment for sustainability and advertising. I think, maybe in Cannes 2 years ago, it was like, oh my gosh, we have to do this. And I think last year, maybe in Cannes was like the peak of sustainability hype. And I feel like the last few months, it really does kind of feel like we're in this trough of disillusionment, not just in the industry, but you see like backlash against ESG. You see people saying, this whole electric vehicle thing is overdone. They're just expensive cars for rich greenies. That's when you get down here. But the reality is, on every single metric that we watch, the quality of the products and the ability to deliver on a sustainable future that's actually cheaper and better, it's here. And I'll use EVs as an example. Like some of these Chinese EVs are half or a third the price of my Tesla, and they're just as good. They drive me from here to there. They're way cheaper to fuel. Like the idea that EVs are a bad investment is increasingly unrealistic. Oh, there's not chargers. Well, guess what? Charger networks are coming. Same thing's happening in advertising. All the things that we said 2 years ago we'd do, like providing always-on reporting with a consistent industry standard, it's here. And so what's going to happen very quickly is we go into the slope of enlightenment, where companies start adopting this, where it becomes a standard. It's never going to be quite as hypey as it was 2 years ago, but that's good because hype doesn't sell product. Hype doesn't get people to change their behavior. Only adoption does. And that's where we are. All of you are early on this journey. The fact that you're on this call means you're in before we actually start scaling this out as an industry. And I think that's a huge advantage. I'd strongly encourage you to talk about it now and make sure it's clear to your clients and to your prospects that you've been on this journey from the beginning and you're ready. That's kind of how I feel about Scope 3. When I first met with Stefan Lork at Cannes 2 years ago and said the WFA should lead the standards process, that was kind of crazy because there was nothing. Like that's like down here being like, there's going to be a standard. He's like, what are you talking about? But look where we are. We have a standard. We have a framework. We have thousands of advertisers and hundreds of companies investing here. And we've been preparing this for 18 months. We've doubled the size of the company in the last 6 months. So we're 60 people, up from 30 in December. We're global. We've got an amazing foundational platform. We've been doing the data work. We're launching Verified. We have media reporting. Like everything we've been doing is to be here today, ready for this moment, so that in the second half of this year, we can support our partners as they take advantage of and win in a sustainable future. And this is where decarbonization happens as well.